Ooh, I like the white.
Okay, let's go white. That works.
I like the white. Okay, recording audio, recording camera, recording here. Are you recording? Okay, so fun fact, both of us actually lost our footage of our side profiles. I was gonna get some really good Daniel Greene 4K footage, but he lost his stuff, and I also lost my stuff. We're just working with what we've got. It's all good. It's just kind of funny that we both lost it. So anyway, okay, continue.
You're interviewing a goblin. It's not gonna be high.
Okay, so let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine. I'm here with the disheveled goblin. How are you doing?
Good. Got my coffee. It's a nice Saturday here. It's beautiful out, and I don't have much to do today. So finally, I get to have like a full day to myself, which is nice, and I get to talk with you, which is wonderful.
We're going to be talking about your book today. I'm super excited because I feel honored that I got to read it before everything even came out. Yes, hold it up, please. Oh my gosh, I'm super excited. I pre-ordered it, and I'm waiting for. When things release, I will get a copy, and I'm super excited because I will absolutely color all over it. And it'll be great.
I got a ton of author copies, and then I promised them to a bunch of people. I genuinely only have 3 copies of my book now, and I've promised 4 more to give away. So I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have no copies of my book.
Oops, is this the one where that you noticed a mistake in it and you were like, wait, I gotta take it back and fix it?
I have 3 total. 2 are the original, and 1 is like, I need to keep one of the original, and then 1 is like the new printing. So I need to order more or something, because it's not a good look to not have your own book.
You just gotta like replace all of the books on your shelf and just Daniel Greene's Breach of Peace, and that's it. That's totally.
That's an idea. There's no way for me to set up doing signed copies. A lot of people have asked, but like I would have to sign and ship them all myself. And like the cost of that would be insane. And the amount of effort and work time. Like if I had a team, sweet. Or if there was some way I could like ship them and not have to pay hundreds of dollars in shipping, awesome. But yeah, I can't manage that. Self-pub does not have that advantage. I had someone message me. They offered me like a few $100s for a signed copy. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Ooh.
And like I get why you'd want to do that. Like I would pay hundreds of dollars for like a Robin Hobbs signed copy, but like I don't feel like I've earned that. So it's this like imposter syndrome worst nightmare. Where it's like I'm not okay doing that. I haven't earned that yet.
Yeah. How is that feeling, by the way? Like I can imagine it's probably a little awkward to be someone who did a bunch of reviews and then you've created something. And now you're kind of in this dual space. And you've mentioned imposter syndrome multiple times. So how does that feel? What's going on in your head?
I got into this with a Heart of Michi interview a little bit, and I've had more time to think on it. So like there's this conversation that sprung up about reviewer spaces and things like that. What I think a lot of people don't know behind the scenes, I've talked to a surprising amount of the authors I've reviewed in some capacity, not even in interviews, just like chatting up, hitting it. And there's no weirdness, even if it's a kind of negative review. There's no like awkward, like, oh, you didn't like it. It's almost always in a very adult, like, hey, thanks for the critical feedback. And that's kind of my approach to it. I don't see the like hard lines like some people are apparently seeing. And I respect that viewpoint a lot. But it's just like, since I kind of blew up like in the beginning by around 100K, like if I review a book, there's like a 50-50 shot I'll end up talking with the author if they're alive. And so it's just kind of like that line's never been there for me, because I've always been having that dialogue a little bit with authors. Okay. It was surprising to see like pushback and be like, get out of this space, because I didn't know that was anyone's mentality. And suddenly it's like pretty big deal. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just not my philosophy in this. And I encourage anyone who doesn't want to hear from me to just ignore me. It's very easy to do. A lot of my family members do it. So
what I've noticed is over the years, I feel like the line between authors and reviewers has kind of blurred a lot more. Like interviews and discussions have been a lot more open, which I think is really good. But at the same time, I'm really surprised. I didn't know that you talked with authors when you've done negative reviews. Like I would be super uncomfortable. I would feel just like, oh, I don't know. And maybe that's just me. I would feel super uncomfortable talking, but props to you for that.
Most of the time they've heard worse. Like you're not going to be the most negative review they've heard. And most authors are pretty adult and they like know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm always a fan of having dialogue and learning from each other. Like that's just my number one philosophy in life. Since I was on debate, since I got into rhetoric in college, like that was my main area of study. So like, I always believe learning from another mind is a good thing from a different perspective, especially if a reviewer ever says like, I don't want you talking in my space. Oh, I'll respect the hell out of that. The one review I kind of responded to, I specifically reached out to Travis first and said, hey, are you comfortable with me responding? And he went like, oh, please do. That's great. And so him and I are buddies. Like, I like Travis, and he didn't like my book too much, and I think that's great because I learned a lot from his perspective. And I responded, and he responded, and I think he had a really nice point. So it's like, oh, I'm going to try and address this. He kind of wanted it to be more overt what he was talking about. I don't want it to be more overt because I want it to be very tactful the way I'm approaching that theme, but it made me appreciate the standpoint of some people who aren't as comfortable without it being as overt, that I'm coming in a negative light. And when we're talking about art in this lens, there's never a objectively true answer, right? This is all subjective, wishy-washy, standpointy stuff. I love Malazan more because I talked with Erickson, and after I got a better grip on what his intent was, it changed my whole view of the series of Malazan. And so now I appreciate that, and I hope it's something I can contribute as well. But if, hey, people want me to shut up and go away, I'll shut up and go away. I'm fine with that.
Well, the fact that you talked to him previously before responding, I think is like a really productive way of doing things. I mean, years ago, I did a review for a very popular book by a popular booktuber. And I love this booktuber, but I would have felt super uncomfortable if she had come into my space without like asking me beforehand. So I would have been like, I'm so sorry. I really love you. Anyway, I think it's good to have those discussions. There's definitely like space I really enjoy having. I like to have my own space when it comes to certain reviews. And I'm sure a lot of other people agree with that. But I also like that there's those discussions. So I really like that. I really respect that sort of approach and mentality.
I'm never going to seriously respond to a review in any sense without at least asking the person first. Like, that's a big. I guess I should have publicly said that. I just didn't think it was necessary. I didn't think it was
you did now. So.
There's this wider conversation that's kind of sprung up where it's also like some people have saying like some of the comments I was responding to never existed. A lot of them were deleted. So I was like, I don't know how to point at them because they were deleted. Oops. But there's one that was still up that very much so was saying, and then I put in the pinned comment like, I'm responding to the minority of comments here because I wanted to make this point for a long time, and I was just using my own book as an excuse, and I didn't think it would become an issue. I was like, oh, I just want to talk about authorial intent and freedom, and then suddenly people were like, and I was like, sorry, this is what I meant to happen. And there's one final point that I've seen, because here's one of the things: when people get mad at you, it's really hard to figure out what people are really mad about, because there'll be like one person in a thread talking about something that no one else has talked about, and there'll be another person talking about something that a few people are liking that's completely unrelated. And and you're like, I'm trying to pin down what's the actual like response, because if you look up your own name, you're also going to see people who are just like, I hate his face. It's a pretty annoying face. I agree.
No, and there's people like me who, well, outside, I'm seeing all these things crash and burn, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not even involved, so I have the space to figure it out. And so I feel like I'm hacker mode, like trying to figure out all of the puzzle pieces, and it's awkward, but it's funny. So
I knew there was like people upset, but for my own mental health, I was like, I don't want to look too much into it right now because I was just having anxiety of the day. And then you kind of like actually brought my attention to some of the stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, let me look into this. I just wish people would tag me and message me and be like, hey, here's my issue. What are your thoughts? And a lot of times I'm probably like, oh yeah, you're probably right. I'd handled that poorly. I have no hostility towards anyone. People seem chill and nice, and I like people.
What's really interesting about seeing your book kind of take off, from my perspective, when it comes to writing things, I feel like people have two different mental approaches. They either want to just get their stuff out, or they feel so hyper fixated on details and making it as perfect as they possibly can that they take absolutely forever to release it. And I feel like, I mean, Tolkien did that, and in many ways it was great. But at the same time, I have to say, watching your book come out, I feel like is a great example of just practicing writing and getting your work out there for the sake of getting your work out there and moving on. Do you feel like you have achieved a lot of experience doing that? Or would you say you match that sort of format?
That's a very, very good question. This is essentially me cheating that big holdup you're talking about right exactly there, where my actual novel, I've been terrified to like get done. Like every chapter, I'm so second guessing, but this idea of a novella, it was just so much more easy, and it felt so much more controllable. And that's why I just spent like, okay, I can spend 6 months making this 140, 50 pages perfect. And they're not perfect. There's problems already I'm aware of that I can improve on for the next one. But the most valuable takeaway has been getting feedback. That's why every arc I've been sending out, I've essentially said, like, please be as critical as you can. Show me where you think my weak spots are. And fortunately, a lot of booktubers have been giving me that. I've also tried to specifically give it to smaller channels more often because I want them to get whatever growth I can give them by retweeting them and stuff. And that's been really nice to see. Seeing the diversity of opinions from the perspective of an author is genuinely fascinating. Seeing how people can interpret and, you know, take away different things, seeing some confusion around my own failures of communication as well is so valuable. There's a part of me that's like, I want to go back and redo it. Like, I want to do it again. And oh yeah, that's a weakness. I need to fix that. But you can't re-release a book that's like, you know, telling the same story. But, you know, that's why I want to do a trilogy of novellas where I can take that feedback, make the second better, take feedback again, make the third better. And hopefully by that point, I'll be reasonably, you know, well set up enough to actually write my first fantasy book, because I respect this genre. I respect the craft of being an author so much. I don't want to just put my foot in with a, you know, first attempt novel. That's crap. I've seen so many people do that and they regret it forever. So this is my like warm up round. It's me shadow boxing in the corner before the actual fight.
Well, it's good. I think it's a really good approach to publishing. And I think it'll also be really satisfying to see over time how you improve. Like, I definitely saw that from like your first draft, or at least like a really rough cut of the draft, to the final product. It's really satisfying from my perspective to see just like, oh, he changed this or he did this. And it's a great way to just get your foot in there.
I'm extremely aware of the position of privilege I'm coming from in releasing a book, where I have a platform, I can promote it and get it in people's hands. Like, I am unbelievably advantaged over your average person who's just trying to put out a self-published book. And so I'm very aware of that. It's why I've deliberately not spoken on the marketing side of it, because it's not something I've had to worry about. I haven't had to think about how to market my book. So I want to help people figure out how to get their work out there. That's why I did a whole book about how to get publishing done, but I never touched on the marketing side, because that's just something I can't speak on, because I'm not having to worry about that. I just very dumbly at the end of my videos go, check out book in description, me. And that's all I have to do. Self-published authors, I am one technically, but I don't feel like I really have earned that title as much, because they're having to do a whole other side of the struggle I don't have to. And that hustle is so difficult. You know, speaking to self-published authors who have done it, getting your book that you know is good in people's hands is hard. And it's something I don't have to deal with. And so God, self-published authors, you guys are maniacs and I love you.
At the same time, it's like you just reversed it. Like, you got public first and then you wrote. Like, I think they're two very difficult processes, and you don't have to do it in a certain order for it to be valid, I guess you could say. So, and I know a lot of booktubers get flack, like, oh, of course everyone's going to buy their book because they're popular. When it's like, well, they worked for that too, you know, in a different way. So
I got a lot of death threats to get this platform.
Gosh, seriously though.
There's this other side where, you know, I do know how to, for a self-published author to best get their books in people's hands, because I've seen them been doing it for years. I've been watching self-published authors find success. And the person who I say you should definitely mirror the most is Evan Winter. Evan is the guy who, in my opinion, self-published author, you want to go a certain route, you want to figure out how to do it. He did the math. Literally, like, Evan killed it.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was a self-published author. I thought he was like totally traditional, and it seemed like
he was at first, and then Orbit stepped in and was like, "You are killing it." He's like, "I know." They were like, "You want to get on here?"
No, I admire that guy. I mean, social media is like half of it. Like, it really is just getting your foot out there and being as engaged online as you possibly can while still setting those boundaries. And I think he did a really good job with that, and I enjoyed his book. So I want to ask also, with the whole process of publishing, you've talked about this a little bit in other interviews, but what would you say is the most difficult, the easiest, and the most satisfying part of self-publishing?
I'm trying to answer this every time I get asked it, because I don't want to be the person who in every interview is saying the same things. So I'm going to say most difficult, I'm going to rephrase to scariest. Because the scariest part of this is not what I thought it'd be. I thought writing would be the most terrifying part. It's not. The most terrifying part is actually sending ARCs to people. That is scary, to be like, hey, I'm going to give you my book. Please be honest. Please don't post it somewhere. Please, you know, don't feel like you need to blow smoke up my butt. Give me real critical feedback. And then also being like, am I sending the right draft? Like, is this the actual final one? Like, there's this constant anxiety after you send it, where it's like, did I accidentally send them like my Kaladin Adolin fanfic? Like, oops.
I just watched Jake's video this morning.
It's so funny.
God. Oh my God.
The easiest part, I was lucky enough to get an artist who was just so good at what he did that I had my vision, and then he just stepped in with his interpretation of my vision. I was like, that's better. That's better. Like, you take it, Felix.
That must have been super satisfying. I looked at your cover and I was like, oh, dang, That's super good. I don't like the statement where people are like, don't judge a book by its cover. Because I genuinely think that artists have the opportunity to market a cover in ways that the story cannot, you know?
I would say it's okay to judge self-published books by their cover because the author is directly in control of the presentation of their book because they hired the artist, they gave feedback that, you know, and sometimes they are the artist. So like that, it's more right to judge a self-published book by its cover than traditional. Because if you're unaware, traditionally published books, very often the author has no say in the book.
Way less control.
Granted, they might love their covers still, but it's not their true vision as much. But so I got in touch with Felix, who I was just so lucky to find him, and be recommended him. And I sent him a very detailed, here's my vision. It's an industrial fantasy setting, and here's the characters and stuff like that. And he came back with drafts that were immediately just like, they hit a vibe so hard. Like the vibe was just powerful. And I said, okay, damn. All right. You're going in a direction here. I think the only real feedback I had was changing one symbol that's in the background and then adjusting the way the characters were standing because he had Hlid in the back at first. And I said, well, she's really the star of this book, so she needs to be brought to the front. It actually added more depth to have her that way as well, too, which was good. He's just someone who's like, you know, it's like listening to Michael and Kramer K. Writing read a book or watching, you know, N.K. Jemisin write a story. It's just someone who's like so much better than like what you're at. You're just like, okay, roll.
Like, I got this.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool. We brought in the real professional. I can stop pretending. You go ahead and do you.
How was it working with Michael and Kate? Like, really, I know you said they're like the nicest people ever, but how is that like just internally? Were you just fanboying the whole time?
They are the nicest people of all time. But in addition to that, I still like hearing them narrate my book. It hasn't processed that's my book. Like I hear them reading my story, but I can't judge it as my, like that's actually the way I've had the most clear thoughts on my own book was not rereading it. It was listening to them read it. And that's where I was able to go like, that's a clunky line of dialogue because I can hear them do their best, which still delivers the line way better than it is. But in my head, I'm like, that was my fault. I was like, that was a bad line in the script. And they helped me see that. So like next time I actually plan on reading my book out loud and recording myself and then playing it back as a way to better spot issues of dialogue and stuff. So that's just something I genuinely plan on doing for book 2. Now that book 2 is almost done, I'm probably going to do that before too long.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I think it's so satisfying because I mostly listen to audiobooks. I really do think audiobooks can make or break a story depending on narrators and depending on, and it is a great way to analyze the dialogue further. And that's really awesome.
I just hate the gatekeeping around audiobooks so much. The people who are like, you didn't really read it. It can improve it. Like, First Law is a great book. The audiobooks are even better because Stephen Casey is just extraordinary because he's not taking anything away. He's adding a performance. It's like you have a great cake and he's the icing on top.
Oh, movie recording has been stopped automatically. Wait, hold on.
You're good. You're good.
Take 5.
My camera does the same thing after like an hour, so I totally understand. For anyone wondering, this is the professionalism of book 2. My interviews are exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh, this is the professionalism of book 2. It's okay. We're working with good equipment. You've talked a little bit about your inspirations, but with this book specifically, what would you say are like the biggest inspirations? Maybe not just author-wise, but philosophy-wise, maybe personal experiences in your life. Like, what was your biggest motivation for writing this book?
A very big part of my life over the last few years has been realizing, you know, just how bad certain things in this world are for people. And I feel like, you know, my own education, I was lied to repeatedly by teachers and stuff. And, you know, I've talked about this several times, but like I was shown that Japan after we nuked them was like, oh, please occupy us. That's great. Like that's what they told us in elementary school. They were like, oh, Japan wanted to be occupied. That's Southern education for it. We also only spent like, I think a couple days on the Native Americans and then we just moved on. It wasn't until I had a teacher who was like, no, we're going to get into this. I don't care what the curriculum says. Where I like learned how bad it was. And so I wanted the big theme of this to be a reflection of something I felt in my own life, which is, you know, it's very easy to keep your head in the dirt and just accept the stuff that's spoon-fed you and not actually try and put yourself in the shoes of other people who are living a different experience in your world. And that's the big theme of this book is you're starting where I feel like I started, which was a very head in the dirt. You know, I believed all the stuff that I was taught in my Southern Virginia school. And now, you know, once I went to college, once I talked with more people, you know, understood why, you know, certain friends of mine are terrified when a cop pulls them over. that's where book 2 and 3 are going to be more from the perspective of. I wanted to do a waking up since kind of theming, and it's not supposed to be a direct allegory for much. I'm a huge history nerd, so I pulled a lot from real life history stuff like manifest destiny, imperialism, disrespecting and elimination of cultures, the superiority complex Western cultures often tend to have, and trying to bring that into the writing of something that's just basically devalue other people's cultures because they're different than yours. So it's just a very deep look at that, starting from the perspective of someone who was born and raised in this Orwellian society and having their head pulled out from it. You do meet the main character of my novel in this book, but it's not who people think it is, which is going to be fun to see what people end up finding out. The novellas are going to have that arc, and then the actual novel series is going to be more of a downfall or a revelation of truth that is less parallel, less immersed in this stuff, and more just a fantastical epic fantasy journey. So the novellas, I think, are the most political side of this series, just because it's so close to the heart of so much of what inspired this. And then the novels are going to be more of a fantastical adventure that's still definitely echoing all of that, but it's going to be more focused on characters and magic and things like that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I look forward to it. Would you say you spent a lot of time researching for this book?
A total rough estimate, there's probably a 2-to-1 ratio of research to writing. Where it was 2 hours of research for 1 hour of writing, especially because like stuff I didn't know about, pre getting into it. Like I really need to learn about steel manufacturing and how that really brought the Industrial Revolution to its highest height, because the Industrial Revolution is largely an inspiration for the setting of this book. I now know pretty much how to make steel. I didn't need to, but it was just like, for me, I was like,
a sword. I want a sword now, please.
Okay, knowing how to and then actually doing, two very different things. So I need about $500,000 worth of equipment.
Well, you better get crack-a-lackin'.
Yeah, but there's a fascinating angle to it where it's like you learn, there's like forgotten people of history. Like there's one dude who pretty much figured out how to make steel manufacturing 1,000 times easier. And it's like, oh, this guy changed the world forever. And we owe him basically cities existing on the scale they do now. Like he's the reason we can have skyscrapers and no one knows his name.
If you could put your writing process in a box, what would you say it looks like?
That's okay. Put it in a box. Is a rat running around in a circle and occasionally stopping to cry a good visual?
That's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Because it's me just like frantically getting through an idea, and then I look back at what I wrote and I'm like, oh. And then you have to like edit and make it actually coherent, because it's like I forgot to do a new paragraph for like 6 pages. Oh
my gosh. You just like vomit your writing, like you just are like, nope, just write, don't care, do it.
I essentially got through the full first draft by just doing that. I did not edit or anything. I just needed to get it out. It was like taking a very massive dump where it's just like, this needs to be done. This needs to get out. Yeah. We'll worry about the mess later. I'm very sorry for that.
No, it's okay. That's staying in there unless you want me to cut it out.
No, that's fine. But it was getting serious. It was just about like getting the ideas out. I had to, because I kept losing them or they got foggy. And so it was about getting the story done and then just fixing it all in the second draft. If you want to get your writing out and you really struggle with it, don't care about quality first draft. Just sprint through as much as you can.
Yep. Just do it.
And that's where I found my success.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing for me to do. I am such a perfectionist, and I think it's better to have something down than nothing at all.
Give it to your best friend who's very willing to go like, you suck, dude. Like, give it to the guy who's going to give you like the feedback of like, this whole thing, terrible. It's not disheartening. I actually found the more critical feedback I get, it's almost motivating, because I know I can do better.
Don't be afraid of people absolutely tearing your work apart, and that's okay. I guess to kind of wrap up a little bit, I have a few sort of fun questions, but well, first, have you seen any memes at all? Have any memes been made about your book yet?
No, I've gotten fan art though, which made me, it's like touched my heart so much. I like teared up. I was like, oh my God. But no memes yet. Although I encourage memes, go for it.
With your book, the thing I was most impressed by were your characters and just how dynamic they were, at least for me personally, especially Clid. I don't want to say I was surprised, but I was more just really intrigued and proud that I felt connected to these characters the way that I connect to, say, like Sanderson characters or other just characters that I really enjoy. Out of your characters written, which one would you say is your most relatable character to you personally, or at least you see more of yourself in them?
A lot of my awkwardness and anxiety, I just put in Chapman. And so he's a very much so, he's smarter than me, manifestation of my own anxieties and stuff sometimes. But in terms of my own personality, when I'm very angry, I think I relate to Halid in some way. She kind of has that voice like I wish I could say sometimes. She is someone I wish I saw more of myself in. She was someone who I very much so admire in certain aspects of her personality. Her beliefs are totally bonkers and not good, but battery died.
Battery died. Game over.
It didn't even say battery died. It said battery exhausted, which makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like a little battery on a treadmill. It's just like,
Aww.
oh my God.
You poor battery. Do you need a water break? That probably wouldn't be good for the battery, but it's okay. As an author, what's your go-to break snack when you got to take a break and cry a little bit over your writing?
Grater's black raspberry ice cream.
Oh!
It's the greatest ice cream ever made. It's blackberry chocolate chip ice cream by Grater's. And
wait a second. Wait, is it? It's like purple and the chocolate chunks are in it?
Yeah. You've had it?
Dude, I can't find that ice cream anywhere, but I've had it years ago and I dream about it a lot and I miss it.
It's the best ice cream to ever be made.
No way.
A milkshake out of it for you if you go in there. I have driven an hour to get to a Grater's before. It's amazing. They just started being distributed through Kroger's, so they're actually in Kroger's now.
Oh, dang. I just got like the biggest wave of nostalgia. I miss that ice cream so much.
I like how I woke up this thing in you where you're like, now I must find it.
I just something inside me went feral and remembered that this ice cream exists. If we're on the subject of ice cream, if you could give your characters a favorite flavor of ice cream, what would it be?
Khalid would be straight up chocolate. She would just, I like chocolate. She'd be like, that's fine. Samuel, he'd go vanilla. Chapman would want something very delicate and well crafted. He would be like a salted caramel chocolate chip coffee thing, and that would be his favorite. And he would eat a very small amount, and then he'd go work out.
And would he vomit or not vomit?
No, he's not. He's not that level. He'd still enjoy it, but then he'd go and sit in his barren ass apartment and be like, "Okay, this is where I live."
I love that. That's great. I think you can tell a lot about a person based on their favorite ice cream flavor. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on, and this was very chaotic and wonderful, and I'm super excited to edit this. But I love talking with you. Daniel Greene's book is out. Go read it. Breach of Peace. It's wonderful, and I'm really excited for everybody to read it, and I'm really excited for your writing to just keep going. We're signing off now. Peace out, guys. Thanks for watching. Cover the camera. Boom. We're good. All right.